At dawn, the crowd was already outside the Japanese consulate in Kaunas. They were not tourists. They were Jewish families who had fled Poland carrying whatever could survive a border crossing: passports, photographs, a few clothes, and children old enough to understand that every door had closed. Now they were waiting beneath the window of Chiune Sugihara. The documents in their hands described an improbable journey across the Soviet Union, through Japan, then onwards to a Dutch island in the Caribbean. On paper, it looked possible. Under Japan's rules, many of them did not qualify, and the consulate was about to close. Sugihara had days to decide whether a regulation mattered more than the people standing outside his home. The object that changed their future was not a weapon. It was a transit stamp. 1 year earlier, Europe had broken open. Germany invaded Poland from the west. The Soviet Union entered from the east. Tens of thousands of refugees reached Lithuania, which was still independent and temporarily safe. But safety was shrinking. In June 1940, Soviet forces occupied Lithuania. Arrests followed. Foreign diplomats were told to wind down their missions. To the west lay German-controlled territory. To the east lay thousands of miles of Soviet railway. The route nobody wanted became the only route left. Chiune Sugihara had not been sent to Lithuania as a rescuer. He was a 40-year-old Japanese diplomat and a specialist in Russian affairs. From Kaunas, his government wanted information about Soviet and German movements in the Baltic region. He understood borders, official language, and the gap between what a document said and what it allowed. The refugees understood something else. A route does not have to be perfect. It only has to stay open long enough. Refugee organizers began assembling an escape plan, one signature at a time. The first crucial paper came from Jan Zwartendijk, the Dutch honorary consul in Kaunas. He wrote notations stating that no entrance visa was required for Curaçao, a Dutch territory in the Caribbean. That statement left out a decisive obstacle. Entry to the island still depended on permission from its governor, permission that was rarely given. Curaçao was not a realistic destination for most of the people holding those papers, but it was a destination on paper. That allowed them to ask Japan for transit visas. With Japanese visas, they could ask Soviet authorities for permission to cross the country. If every official accepted the document placed in front of them, a family could travel east instead of being trapped in Europe. The plan reached Sugihara's desk. Japanese regulations required travelers to have proper permission for their final destination and enough money for the journey. Many of the refugees had neither. Sugihara began issuing visas anyway. This was not one dramatic signature. It was repetition. A name, a passport, a destination that might never be reached. A Japanese transit visa valid for a short stay. Then the next person, and the next. The crowd returned each morning. Inside the consulate was also the Sugihara family home. His wife Yukiko and their children lived beside the work while Soviet pressure closed around the building. The official list eventually contained more than 2,000 names. Some visas covered children and other family members. The number of people helped was therefore larger than the number of documents, but the famous totals vary depending on what is being counted. What does not vary is the choice. Sugihara issued papers to people who failed the normal conditions. Before leaving Lithuania, he also gave visas to refugees whose documents were incomplete. But a visa was not an escape. Its holder still needed Soviet permission to leave. A train ticket cost far more than many families possessed. The journey crossed Siberia to Vladivostok, then continued by ship across the Sea of Japan. Every border could expose the weakness in the plan. Yet officials kept recognizing the papers. Families boarded the Trans-Siberian Railway. For days, forests and frozen distances moved beyond the glass while Europe disappeared behind them. In Vladivostok, the Japanese visa opened another gate. Ships carried refugees to Tsuruga and other ports. In Japan, another network took over. Jewish organizations, local communities, diplomats and aid workers found rooms, food, and onward routes. Some refugees reached Canada, the United States, or Palestine. Many eventually went to Shanghai, where they endured the war under Japanese occupation. United States Holocaust Memorial Museum research records that about 2,178 Polish Jewish refugees entered Japan between October 1940 and August 1941. Not everyone holding a visa escaped Lithuania before Soviet exit permissions stopped, and no one person had built the entire road. Refugees had imagined it. Zwartendijk supplied the paper destination. Sugihara supplied the transit visa. Soviet officials permitted journeys. People in Japan and beyond kept the travelers moving. History often compresses that chain into one heroic name. The chain is the reason the name matters. Sugihara left Kaunas in early September 1940. He continued serving Japan elsewhere in Europe. Near the end of the war, Soviet forces detained him and his family. They returned to Japan in 1947. He then left the foreign ministry during a broad post-war reduction in staff. Later accounts often describe this as punishment for the visas. The surviving record does not make that explanation certain. For years, the people who had crossed his desk knew more about what he had done than most of his own country. In 1968, one of the men helped by the visas found him in Japan. In 1984, Yad Vashem recognized Chiune Sugihara as righteous among the nations. He died 2 years later. His decision is sometimes presented as a single act of defiance. It was more demanding than that. He had to look at the next passport, recognize the same rule, understand the same risk, and choose the person again. More than 2,000 names. More than 2,000 moments when a closing border remained open for one line longer.